It's time for even more top 10 books. Hi everyone, my name's Leah, and today we will talk about even more top 10 books. This time it's going to be all about fairy tale books. So we have some classics on here that are very well known, and then we have some retellings as well. So let's get started. As in the last video of this series, I will start with some honorable mentions. This time we have 3 books in it because I just couldn't decide, and I like fairy tales and fairy tale retellings a lot, and I've read, well, a lot, but not every single one that I'm interested in so far. So if you don't see your favorite fairy tale book on here, it's very probable that I just haven't read it. So yeah, let's go through the honorable mentions. The first one would be Cinderella's Dead by Karen Byron. This is a very young adult and dark fantasy retelling of Cinderella, obviously. And I know some people just don't like it. I think it was very entertaining for what it is. If you expect something very adulty, it's obviously not going to be like that because it is a YA book and it does have your typical romance in it, but I just love the idea behind it. It takes place in this fictional world where Cinderella was an actual character in it, and it's 200 years later after, well, Cinderella got what she wished for in her life. And in this fictional town that our main character Sophia is living in, they have these kind of festival thingies. They are balls where you can be the next Cinderella, essentially, to get married off to someone. But yeah, as I've said, it's much darker than just this cute fairy tale of finding your true love. And it also had some things in it later on that seem to expand the world even more, talking about other fairy tales, other worlds. So yeah, I hope some of her other books will talk about that maybe, because she has written other fairy tale inspired things. So yeah, I'm excited about that. I've only read this one. I enjoyed it for what it is, and I like the atmosphere, the writing style, everything. But yeah, it's not a 5-star book, just 4 stars, which is why it's only an honorable mention. The next one is this Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's called Lost in a Book by Jennifer Donnelly. Again, it's a 4-star book, so very entertaining. Also young adult, but not as young adult as the last book, I think, at least. And yeah, this is about Belle, who is living in the Beast's castle, as we all know from the fairy tale or movie adaptations or whatever. And she finds this mysterious book, and it works as a portal. So she's swept into a very magical and dark world. And yeah, I just love portal books. I love Beauty and the Beast. Maybe we will see the original tale later on, who knows. And yeah, I think this was very fun, very atmospheric, also dark, and has a cute romance. And it's also not just a plain retelling of Beauty and the Beast. It has its own unique elements in it. And the last honorable mention is actually a book series. I've only read the first 2 books, I think, maybe 3, but I think only the first 2 books in the series. And it's been a long time since I did that, so I have to reread those to really see if it's a 5-star book, 4-star book. And that's why it's only an honorable mention. I did enjoy them when I read them. So this is Reckless by Cornelia Funke. She's a German author, but this book should be translated into English, I'm pretty sure. And this is also about a portal world, and it's about all kinds of fairy tales and myths. I think every single book in that series is focusing on a different or multiple different myths or tales. I think there's one about Asian stories, but I haven't read that, and I don't really remember much about the plot. I think it was about some boy who's searching for his brother who was swept into this portal world, and then there's all kinds of stuff. I think there's even war and battles and just a big adventure in it, and there's also a fox lady in it, I think, who's going to be, well, some kind of companion to our main character, but again, I don't really remember much. I just know that there was something about this brother in some kind of army and this portal world that you get into by stepping into this weird mirror. And yeah, that's basically it. And similar to the mythology video, I just love if there are book series about a specific topic, in this case fairy tales. Most of the time it's standalones, but if it's a book series, wow, it's going to be even more interesting to me. I don't know why, but I just love that idea of creating such a big fictional world and not just one book about fairy tales. So yeah, let's move on to the actual top 10 books. We will start off with number 10 and move ourselves up to number 1, the best fairy tale book, in my humble opinion. So book number 10 is actually The Language of Thorns, or Die Sprache der Dorn, by Lee Bardugo, and this is a companion short story collection from the Grishaverse, and it's heavily illustrated as well. And yeah, it's just a collection of multiple stories, which is always fun. There's witchy stuff, there's Beauty and the Beastie stuff, and there's a mermaid story in it. So yeah, I just love all that kind of stuff in it, and I think these fairy tales are very enjoyable. They are very original, and these illustrations are just amazing in it. So yeah, that's why it's on number 10. And just to show you some of the illustrations, so we have one full picture for every story, and it builds up to it throughout the story, just getting more and more complex. The next few books will actually be very well-known fairy tale classics. So at number 9 we have The Wizard of Oz by Frank L. Baum, and this is an American fairy tale, you could say, and I have it in multiple editions. I just grabbed the first one that I could find, which is the Mina Lima edition, which also has a lot of illustrations and interactive elements in it. So it's a great way to read the story, and I've read this story for I don't know how many times. I just really like it. Love the characters, love the whole message behind it, and the plot is very entertaining, and it's also very great to analyze it, especially the beginning, the first few chapters, and again the ending and stuff. So yeah, it's a great journey. I highly recommend it if you have read the story and only know, I don't know, adaptations of it. I don't know if I have to tell you what these stories are about, because they are classics and I think everyone knows what they are about. But I mean, just in case you don't, this is about Dorothy. She lives in a very sad black and white world with her uncle and aunt on a farm, and with her dog Toto. And then one day a tornado comes and sweeps her away into this colorful, magical, fantastical, exciting world with witches and talking animals and a wizard who can fulfill wishes. And he lives in an emerald city where everything is apparently green, emerald green, obviously. And yeah, Dorothy meets munchkins, who are very interesting characters. She has to battle against witches. She's got magical shoes that can do stuff. We've got weird flying monkeys and a lion companion, or a scarecrow which can talk. So yeah, all kinds of interesting stuff, and they all are trying to get to this wizard at the end. So yeah, again, it's kind of a portal fiction. Next up is another Minalima edition, and it's not going to be the last one, I think. This is Pinocchio by, I don't really know how to pronounce his name, Carlo Collodi, maybe? And again, pretty much everyone knows what it's about, but I think the original story is much more complex than, I don't know, maybe the Disney movie that everyone has seen, because it does focus a lot more on the blue fairy girl, which I think is one of the best characters in it. And again, it's a adventurous, fun story, which is also quite dark, and it has magic in it, and it's very fast-paced, and every chapter feels very different. We've got also talking animals and magic, transformations. I mean, Pinocchio itself is a bunch of just talking wood trying to be a real boy. And yeah, I don't know, I just love it. I have reread it multiple times as well, not as often as The Wizard of Oz, but yeah, multiple times for sure. Next up is actually everything that the Brothers Grimm wrote. This is just the Minalima edition, which has only a few stories in it. I also have other editions with a much more complete collection in it, but it's in German, so I just wanted to show you something which is English. And yeah, it doesn't have a lot of stories in it. There are much more stories, and stories that I think are very, very good, but no one knows of them. So if you've only read maybe this edition, try to check out more stories by the Brothers Grimm, because there are so many more interesting and cool stories. And yeah, I mean, I couldn't decide on just one story by them, so I just had to pick a collection. I think everyone knows about the most popular ones, like Snow White, which is heavily featured on here. And yeah, again, it's a classic. I love these kind of stories, and I don't know what else to say about it. Just try to find some more collections which doesn't have the same stories in it. The next book will be Beauty and the Beast. Yeah, I spoiled it with Lost in a Book before, but yeah, here it is. And this is the Villeneuve's edition of it, because there are multiple editions of Beauty and the Beast over time. So yeah, I like this one. And again, if you've only seen adaptations or retellings of it and you've never read the original, please do, because it has a very, very interesting fairy subplot, which is kind of never featured in any of the adaptations or retellings, and I think it's one of the best parts of the story, actually, because we follow one of the fairies and what her task is, what her life is like, and we learn about the fairy realm, and it's so interesting. I don't know why it's never featured in any of the other stories which are based on this. So yeah, love the idea, love retellings about it, and love the fairy aspect in it. So yeah, it's one of my favorite stories for sure. And the next book is a Millennium Edition again. I swear it's the last one. This is about Andersen and all of his stories. Well, not all of his stories, obviously. It's, again, just a very comprised version of what he's written. Again, I highly recommend finding other collections which have even more stories by him, because there are so many more interesting stories. And I mean, it has Little Mermaid in it, which is just so good. I love it so much. I've read it so many times now, and I have so many different editions of it. But Andersen has other great stories as well. It's not just The Little Mermaid. I really like his very melancholy stories. They are just what I like in fairy tales. I like if they are sad and dark, but I also obviously like the more magical, fun, romantic things like Beauty and the Beast. So yeah, don't know what else to say other than, if you've never read it, try it out. The next book is actually a book series again. As I've said, I love that kind of stuff, so that's why The Sisters Grimm by Michael Buckley is so high up in this list of my favorite fairy tale books. This is actually the third book in the series, because I have book 1 and 2 in German, but I wanted to show you the English editions of it. So I just grabbed book number 3, and similar to Reckless, kind of, it has a very huge fictional world with all kinds of fairy tales and myths in it. It's so cool. It's also similar to Percy Jackson in that sense, which has all kinds of mythology stuff in it. This has all kinds of fairy tales in it, fairy tale characters, fairy tale references everywhere. And yeah, every book is very interesting, very fast paced. They are very short indeed. And I mean, we follow the Sisters Grimm, which is a very cool idea. Instead of doing Brothers Grimm, it also has some Diana Wynne Jones vibes, I think, in the beginning. And yeah, I just love the concept of it, and the execution is very cute. This is also some illustrations in it throughout the book, which are very cool. And yeah, I mean, these Sisters Grimm are swept into this fairy tale world with talking fairy tale animal characters. For example, there's the big bad wolf in a lot of these books, if not all of them, and there is this trickster Puck, this fae, which is probably in every single book as well. And yeah, I mean, we've got Snow White and all of these very well-known characters in it as well, and I think they are solving mysteries and crimes around the city, and I just really like it. It's very middle grade-y, so don't expect anything too complex or too mature, but it's very fun. And it has a lot of books in the series, I think 9 books in total. Some of them are not as great, but I gave a lot of these books 5 stars, so yeah, I do highly recommend it. And I don't see it often on BookTube, so maybe it's not a very well-known book. I don't know. These are older books as well, so maybe no one's reading it right now because it is kind of old. I don't know when they were published, but it's been a while. Like maybe at the beginning of 2000 to 2010 or something like that. Maybe they are more recent than I think, but yeah, it's been a while since I've read them. For sure, I've read them maybe, well, I don't want to say anything that's not correct, but maybe 5 to 10 years ago, so they are not the most recent books. So yeah, this third book, for example, was published in 2006, so I wasn't far off with my guess. And yeah, just to show you some of the illustrations, I think every single one is always full page, and yet they are depicting the scenes very well. Also got some illustrations of every chapter. So yeah, that's how the art style looks like. Who did these? Who's the illustrator? Does it say anywhere? Illustrations there. Peter Ferguson. So very great series indeed. At spot number 3 we have yet another series. This is a trilogy, but it's only based on one fairy tale. It's the Dark Wonderland series by A.G. Howard. This first book is called Splintered. This is the German edition. I don't have it in English, so I had to show you this copy. And yeah, it's all about Alice in Wonderland. It starts off in the real world, but then again, it's very portal fiction-y, where our main character, who's basically Alice, is swept into the Wonderland, which is very dark, and it also has romance in it because it is young adult. But I really like this retelling. It's not a straightforward retelling of the story, but it does have a lot of characters and elements from it that we all know. And especially the third book, I think, was very, very dark, very magical, and very atmospheric. I really love that series. It's not perfect in any way, but once our main character is in this magical world, I just loved every second of it. I think there's also a love triangle in it, so if you don't like that, this might not be for you. I don't mind love triangles, so I didn't have a problem with it, and I liked the conclusion of that love triangle at the end. Interesting idea to approach this problem. It's also not the most recent book. So yeah, if you love Alice in Wonderland, I highly recommend to check it out because it is one of the best retellings that I've read. And at number 2 we have more Alice in Wonderland, but this time it's about the Queen of Hearts and her origin story, how she became the villain that she is in Alice in Wonderland. I love Marissa Meyer's writing style, and she again doesn't just retell the story with minor changes. She really creates her own world, her own plot, with references to the original tale and well-known characters in it, well-known phrases in it that we know. But yeah, it's a very original story on its own as well. Again, I love Alice in Wonderland, so of course I love Heartless as well. And I haven't seen this one as much on BookTube, and I also think that this has never been translated into German, which is such a shame because it's such a good book. Again, it's quite dark because, I mean, it is about the Queen of Hearts, of course it's dark, but it's also very exciting and adventurous and very whimsical. And I don't know, I just love to see all of these references in it, and just to have a dark, adventurous, magical tale. I even think that I cried at one point, which is just crazy in a retelling. But yeah, I don't know, it was somehow amazing, and I kind of want to reread it in the future because I've only read it once so far. It's just one standalone book, not a series, which is kind of sad as well. I would have loved to have a whole series on it, But yeah, Marissa Meyer, love her stories. I still have to read her Guild book, which is also a series, so that's exciting. And this is also based on a fairy tale on Rumpelstiltskin, I think, which is very fun. I think I have never read a retelling of Rumpelstiltskin. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I don't think I have. So I'm really excited about that series as well. And then book number 1 obviously had to be The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer again. It's just so good. I've read it 2 times now. The first time in German, and then I think maybe 2 years ago in English. And I just loved it every single time. It's a book series that has 4 books in it: Cinder, Scarlet, Cress, and Winter. And then there are some companions, Stars Above and Fairies, which take place after, in between, or before the story of the main series. And every single book has a different fairy tale character as our protagonist in it. So starting off with Cinder, it's obviously Cinderella. And what's so fun about the series is that it has science fiction in it as well. That's such a cool combo, and something that is very hard to imagine if it's never been done before. Like fairy tale and science fiction doesn't really sound like something that would be great together, but The Lunar Chronicles is amazing. And yeah, I mean, you can see these books right here, the whole series, in these beautiful editions that I love. So yeah, I said Cinderella is the first book. Scarlet follows Red Riding Hood and her interesting love interest, which is a wolf. And then we have Cress, which is Rapunzel, and Winter, which is following Snow White. They all have different science fiction elements in it, which is just so cool. We have this lunar moon queen who wants to take over Earth, so we've got that plot in it as well, apart from the typical fairy tale stuff about the girl finding her true love. And yeah, I mean, Cinder is a cyborg. Scarlet, I don't think was she special in any way. I mean, she has her weird army wolf who had been a human at one point but has been transformed into this wolf machine. And then Cress is, I think, on a satellite in some kind of spaceship, I don't remember, in space. So yeah, very interesting idea to turn the tower into something that is isolated in space itself. And then Winter is dealing with this lunar queen. She's living on this planet and not on Earth, as the first 2 books have been set. And then Stars Above, this companion novel, is a collection of short stories, I believe. There are some short stories that are following some of these main characters, like Cinder and so on, but there's also at least one story that is highly original, which is about the Little Mermaid. Very interesting retelling of it. Love that. And then Fairies is again a villain origin story about this lunar queen. So it has all that stuff that I love in books. It's also young adult, but still just so good, which is why it is the best fairy tale book that I've read so far. I'm not sure if any book will be able to be better than this one, but you never know, it might change in the future. But so far this is everything that I love. I mean, it has science fiction, it is quite dark, it's about different fairy tales, it's a book series, it is science fiction in it, if I didn't say that already. It has a villain origin story, it has short stories. I mean, it's just everything I love. And of course it also has an amazing cover. I love these much more than the normal hardcover editions that came out first. And these also have some more illustrations in it, just at the beginning. Nothing in here, no. Just this one scene always at the beginning. So yeah, if you've never read it, I think you should. If anything of what I talked about sounds interesting at all. So yeah, this has been the top 10 fairy tale books video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if I didn't mention your favorite fairy tale book, make sure to leave it down in the comments. I would be very curious. Maybe it's something that I have not read yet, or that I even never heard of before. So yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your day and take care, and happy reading as always. I'll see you in my next video. So until then, goodbye.